Hola, buenos días. Hoy voy a hablar de idiomas y cómo aprendí español. I am going to tell you all about how I taught myself Spanish from zero to fluent. I moved to Spain, I became fluent, but I'm an auditory kinesthetic learner. I work in short bursts and I like to work either one-to-one or by myself. Start making a playlist, like the music of the language that you want to learn. Una manzana, leche, ventana. No, you're going to make mistakes. If you're learning a language, if you're learning any skill, you're going to make mistakes. Just surround yourself with people that don't judge you for doing that. Now, with consistency, there is a formula. What if I told you that learning languages is actually really easy? I'm not lying, and I am not secretly Duolingo or have a superpower. It's all just about the way that you look at things. Hi, my name is Mahika, and welcome to the Reclaiming Bossy podcast. I am going to tell you all about how I taught myself Spanish from zero to fluent. I have a C1 now, and how I did it in actually quite a short period of time. I really enjoyed it. Why I think that everyone should try learning a language, because I think it opens up new worlds. All of the most amazing people that I've met because of Spanish, I think about that and I think of like how potentially I might have missed out on those opportunities, some of the experiences, some of the lessons that I've learned, some of the parts of myself like that I've seen through learning the language is incredible. And I want to use this method to learn Portuguese, to learn French, maybe to learn German. And so this is actually just a refresh in my mind, but also share with you how I did it. Now, I recorded a 2-part series about a year ago of how I learned Spanish, but it's time to refresh and update that because we're Reclaiming Bossy. I have some extra tips. I want to tell you what I have been doing to maintain my level of Spanish as well, because for context, I started from zero. I taught myself. I moved to Spain. I became fluent. But the caveat is you do not need to move anywhere to learn a language well. I just did and it helped me. And I have some tips of how I've managed to maintain my level coming back. So let's get started. Number 1, why do you want to learn language? Tell me, why do you want to be a polyglot baddie? I think before starting anything, before learning any skill in life, you need to have a strong why, because you're going to struggle to stay consistent and motivated. Motivation is so fleeting, and you're going to find discipline really difficult if you don't have a why. The why doesn't have to be something like super grandiose. You don't have to be like solving world hunger through your why or whatever. It could literally just be, I love to travel and I want to connect with more people when I travel. Or I have a friend who lives in X country. I want to learn how to communicate with them. When I started, my why was I want to do some volunteering in Mexico or like in Latin America, and I can't speak any Spanish. Also, I like Latin music. I like salsa, I like bachata, I like merengue, I like reggaeton. I want to be able to understand what's happening. Those are my 2 whys. Number 2, before you even pick up a pen or download Duolingo or buy a textbook, I need you to go and figure out what type of learner you are. Now, I made a whole video about this. It went viral on TikTok, and so I made a whole episode of the podcast on this. But no one is dumb. No one is dumb. We are all smart. We all just have very unique and different ways of learning. And so before you try to teach yourself anything, any skill, any language, any hobby, any technical thing, go and figure out what type of learner you are. Are you a kinesthetic learner? Are you a visual learner? Are you an auditory learner? Do you like learning one-to-one? Do you like learning in groups? Do you like to learn for long periods of time? Are you a short burst person? Go and figure that out, because it will make your life so much easier when you decide to start learning a language. So much easier. Like for me, for example, I'm an auditory kinesthetic learner. I work in short bursts and I like to work either one-to-one or by myself. Like one-to-one is like my favorite. And so I figured that out, and that helped me design the way that I learn, my curriculum, because your curriculum is different to someone else's. And the problem with school is that there's a set curriculum. So some people feel super, super, super smart because they're just lucky. Their way of learning is the way the curriculum teaches them. And some people think that they're dumb because they actually just need a different design. And this is something I'm really passionate about as a neurodivergent girly. So if you have any questions and comments, let me know. DM me on Instagram. We can talk about your learning language. You can ask me any tips. And if you need a Spanish buddy, message me as well, because I'm self-taught. Y me encanta hablar español. Entonces, okay, let's talk about it. So, you figured out your goals, you figured out your learning style. And if you want to know more about learning styles, I will link down the Learn to Learn podcast episode in the description. So just go check that out. And now you're back from figuring out what type of learner you are. You need to go create your world in this language. Go create your bubble. Now, that can mean lots of different things. You have to go make your phone potentially, because we're on our phones all day. So we kind of already know like how to use the camera, how to use the settings. Change the language on your phone. That's something easy. Start making a playlist in the language of like the music of the language that you want to learn. If you like running, make your running playlist in Spanish or Portuguese or French or whatever you want to learn. If you like baking, start watching the baking tutorials in Spanish or French or Portuguese or whatever language you want to learn. One thing I love is I love food. And so when I started, I was like, before I can sit down and eat my food, I have to know how to say what I'm eating, because I like to eat lots of different things and I learn lots of different food vocabulary that way. And now I have like, I can talk about restaurants, I can talk about cuisine, I can talk about what I like. So figure that out. And now we have AI, there's zero excuse. You don't have to even Google all the words separately. You can take a picture and put it into ChatGPT and you can be like, cuéntame cómo se dice esto en español. And so you see that and then you're like, oh, okay. And it will literally repeat. You can put it on like speak mode to figure out how to pronounce stuff as well. And so create your bubble in the language. There's so many different ways, like I said. Food, music, your phone, sports. You can watch your Pilates yoga video in a different language because you're watching the video anyways. So you know that you're meant to be doing crunches or you're meant to do a plank, but then you know how to say it. And so this is like a more fun way of learning vocabulary than opening up your textbook or going on Duolingo and being like, una manzana, leche, ventana. No. Your brain is not going to remember in that way. In the same way, think of vocabulary as little like Russian dolls, little circles. So this circle, then the outer circle, then the outer circle. Start with the stuff that is the most important. Don't learn useless and random vocabulary. Now what this means is the 100 most common words. 100 most frequently used words, and then the 1,000 most frequently used words. Learn how to say and, but, because, however, because then you can make sentences. If you learn how to say windowsill, table, apple, milk, what are you going to use with that? You're not going to be able to do anything with that. But if you learn how to use the connecting words and the most important vocabulary, you can actually start communicating really soon. So that's circle number 1. Circle number 2 is, what do I actually like talking about? Now, this is really important. Before you start working on circle number 2, you have to define your goals, because fluency is such a random goal. What does that even mean? Technically, I'm fluent in Spanish because I have a C1, but am I fluent in Spanish? I mean, I would say so, yeah, because I can hold a conversation with a friend for like a while in Spanish, and like I had a friend stay with me for 5 days and we spoke mostly in Spanish, so I would say so. But like there's many things that I still can't do in terms of grammar, and fluency is such a random, subjective sliding scale. What do you actually want? Do you want to be able to have a conversation at a dinner? Do you want to be able to go to a country and be able to read all the signs in the tube station and the metro? Do you want to be able to read literature and books in the language? Like, make sure that you know what your goal is. And the goal can change. Make the goal fun. Don't make it a language level. Don't make it A, B, C, D, E1, whatever. Make it something that's actually fun for your life. Like I said it around a friend that you want to make, or a trip that you want to have, or a conversation you want to have, or a book you want to read. And then, so you have your inner Russian doll circle 1 vocabulary of the 100 to 1,000 most common words. You know how to say and, but, because, however. Then you learn the stuff that's most relevant to you. So like I said, for me, I love music. So I learned how to talk about different music. I love food. So I learned how to talk about different food. I learned how to talk about my work, my studies, my country, where I'm from, my friends. And then that was circle 2. Then circle 3 is like the stuff that's relevant to that and like other people's interests. And you build it up in that way. And I would say once you have circle 1, go and get some sort of grammar resource. Now, this can differ depending on the type of learner you are. If you're a visual learner, go get a grammar textbook. My grammar textbook is collecting dust. I am never going to use that thing. I'm never going to use it. It literally just carries weight in my bag, collects dust. sits on my shelf, looks pretty. I'm not going to use that. I need podcasts, I need videos, I need websites where I can play like the interactive games to do my grammar exercises. But figure out like a grammar resource and go and learn the most basic present tense, past tense, future tense, and you can start communicating. That will take you 1 month. If you set aside, I don't know, 20 minutes a day and you think like, okay, I'm going to do the basic grammar and then I'm going to learn the 100 most common words, 1,000 most common words. That will take you a few weeks. And then you can start communicating. This is a mistake I see a lot of people make. They wait for a long time to speak. They wait to be perfect because they're scared of being made fun of or making mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. If you're learning a language, if you're learning any skill, you're going to make mistakes. Just surround yourself with people that don't judge you for doing that. And now we have, again, AI. There is zero excuse because you can just talk to your ChatGPT. You can practice. You can be like, hola, ¿qué tal estás? ¿Qué tal tu día? Vamos a practicar español juntos. Like all this kind of stuff. You don't have to go and risk being rejected by a person. I would recommend going and talking to actual people because you learn the slang that way. You learn to develop your own style of speaking. That way you get corrected. That way you learn more about the pop culture that way. And there's so many different ways you can do that. There's italki. There's all these like language buddy resource platforms that you can use. But again, there's so many tools now. There's so many free tools now as well. And use it as an excuse to make friends. Like I said, when you create your bubble in the language, go try a new hobby. When I was learning Spanish, I got into salsa dancing. And I mean, I lived in London, so like not every single person in the London salsa scene speaks Spanish, but quite a few do. And so every time I was dancing with someone, they spoke Spanish, I'd be like, hola, ¿qué tal? Like I'd like start practicing my Spanish with them. And they were super lovely. And so it was a way to get better and better. And so you have your bread and butter. You have little circles of vocabulary and you keep going out and out. And I'm still learning. There's still words I don't know how to say in Spanish and even in English and Hindi, like which is my mother tongue. But you keep creating bigger and bigger circles. And if you see your vocabulary expand like this, then you can form connections between this word and this word and this word and this word. And once you start learning multiple languages, you'll see the connections between them, which is so interesting. And so you have that. That's the bread. And the butter is the grammar. And so find some sort of resource that will help you with the grammar. Again, I'm not going to recommend you one specific thing because this will vary on the type of person you are. If you like books, I really liked the El Actual book for Spanish. I really liked the Madrigal's Magic Guide to Spanish book. I also, if you like videos, really like Spanish with Vicente. Really, really, really good. I really like the Coffee Break podcast series. Really, really good. I like Language Transfer. Really good. And so go and spend some time on finding the right resource. Again, you are not dumb. You just found a resource that you think is boring. If you can't stay consistent with it, you just don't like the tools that you're using. You're not a bad learner. You just need better tools. And so also don't get seduced by tools because there's so many tools and you don't need to be doing everything. You just need to find like 2 or 3 things that work for you and do them consistently. Now with consistency, there is a formula. It comes down to planning and it comes down to fun and it comes down to time blocking. So planning, this is like linked to the whole atomic habits thing, but you have to decide when you are going to do something. For me, my language learning time is usually when I do my makeup. If I'm learning a language, when I do my makeup, I put a podcast on and I listen to a language podcast because I know I'm at my desk. I know I'm most likely in my bedroom. And so I can listen and then I can repeat stuff. So if they're saying like something like, for example, I started learning Portuguese. Portuguese is going a little because I haven't made time to do it consistently. But when I was doing it consistently, when I would do my makeup every day, I would listen to it and I'd repeat and I'd have 20 minutes of language practice. And that was it. That was my language practice every day. And pretty soon I was able to start speaking with people like my producer, Anna, who's editing this, is from Brazil. And she'll laugh at me if I say I can speak Portuguese because not quite yet. But when I first met her, I started to practice. And now I have a few more friends and I practice from time to time. And I want to start doing it more. And so what can you stack your language learning skills with to make it part of your life? If you walk to uni or to work or to school every day, can you listen to something? If you do your makeup every day, can you listen to something? If you are a visual learner, when you're, I don't know, visual is a bit hard in terms of making time because you have to actually sit down, you have to see stuff. But if you're like commuting, if you're on the metro, if you're on the bus, can you turn your scrolling time into maybe scrolling, but in your target language? That's still learning. That's still intake. And so creating a time for it, so planning, time blocking, and then make it fun. Like I said, you're not in school, and if you're learning a language, don't make it miserable because you are not going to do it. And if you are going to do it, then kudos to you. But I don't like doing things that make me miserable. And so what I do is I try and make miserable things fun, or miserable things fun. Learning a language is a privilege. Learning a language is something that you are lucky to be able to do. You are creating the key to enter a new world, meet new people, have new experiences, enjoy new things. And so enjoy the process of making that key rather than something that you have to do with brute force or discipline or whatever. And again, it's the same with fitness and skills and other areas. Enjoy the process of creating the key. It's a privilege. It's something that you're lucky to do rather than something that you have to do. Now, on a more practical level, aside from your bread and butter of vocab and grammar and creating a little bubble, whatever, one mistake that I made was not balancing input and output language practices. So input is like reading, listening, like all that kind of stuff. If you input a lot of a language, you learn to understand it. If you output that, then you can learn to communicate with it. If you don't balance them, then you end up basically practicing for years and years and not being able to speak to anyone in the language. And so with output, that is writing and speaking. And so how can you start writing and speaking in the language? You can do journaling in the language. You can, like I said, speak to your ChatGPT. You can make new friends. You can record yourself. This is something I used to do when I started learning Spanish. I would make a video every day, like a little vlog of like a minute, 2 minutes, and talk about my day in Spanish. And if I didn't know how to say something, I would say it in English. I'd watch the video back and I would write down the stuff that I couldn't say in Spanish and I'd look it up. And then I'd do the vlog again and again and again and again. And by the end, I was able to talk about my life in Spanish. And so when I actually met Spanish people or Spanish speaking people, I was able to communicate with them and I was able to enjoy conversations with them because I balanced the input and the output. And so how can you bring input in? For me, input is listening to music, listening to podcasts, listening to videos, making friends, like listening to radio, all that kind of stuff. And output is practicing with literally anyone who's willing and able to speak with me. And then writing, I struggle with. I find it a little bit boring. But journaling, texting, you can text people in the language, you can write in your notes on your phone, but balance that out. And then in terms of the actual language learning exams, if you actually want to do that, then my biggest advice is to find an accountability buddy. So before I moved to Spain, I taught myself using all of these tricks from 0 to a B1 level, which is basically an intermediate level where I was able to talk about my life and social things, but I wanted to take it to the next level and I wanted to be able to talk about academic things. I wanted to be able to write essays. I wanted to be able to use it as a professional tool. And so the B1 to C1 gap is a very different thing. And I think it takes a different level of skill and different level of input. And so that can be quite difficult to stay consistent with. And so I found someone who also wanted to do the same. Shout out to my friend Maxwell. He's amazing. And so we basically, when we lived in Spain, because you can get tempted if you are studying abroad to still go and hang out with your English speaking friends. And Maxwell's German. So we did speak in English when we first met, but we were like, no, we're going to practice together. And so we decided to make a thing out of it. And every Tuesday, we would go to a different cute coffee shop around the city and we would practice. And we'd do some grammar exercises together and then we'd think of fun homeworks. We went to a board game cafe and we played Scrabble in Spanish. We wrote each other like letters. We read each other poems in Spanish. We did gossiping sessions in Spanish. And it was a really nice way to see each other and to practice. And I really enjoyed it. I really, really, really enjoyed it. And so go find someone that wants to speak the same language as you and will do something like that. It doesn't have to be in person. You can do calls. It doesn't have to be weekly. You can do bi-weekly. You can do monthly. Comment down the language you want to learn below and maybe you'll make some friends in the comments and you guys can learn together. That'll be so fun. That'll make me really, really happy. But basically go find your Maxwell. Second, again, go and create varied sources because you want your input and output to be different. So don't just listen to the same music and podcasts because Then how will you pick up on diverse vocabulary, slang, accents? And so go and find different resources. Now, there's definitely more content for some languages on the internet than others. Like Spanish is one that there's literally no excuse because there's millions of resources out there, channels, podcasts, books. So go find something. What I will say with diversity of input and output is when you're starting, pick an accent, pick a style, because it's going to be so confusing if you're listening to all the different variations of grammar and stuff. This is what I did. When I started, I wanted to learn a bit of Dominican, a bit of Colombian, a bit of Chilean Spanish, all the slang. And so when I started to speak, I sounded crazy because I would use all the different slang and I had no accent. And the grammar was really confusing. And so I think save that for a point when you can actually start communicating and focus one at the start on a region, and you learn how to communicate in that way. And then once you can actually speak the language, then you can learn all the different accents and slang and whatever. And actually one of my favorite parts of my Spanish learning journey was when I moved to Spain and I started to be able to hear the differences in the accents. And I was like, oh my God, that person's from Venezuela, that person's from Argentina, that person's from Tenerife. And so, yeah, I promise you, it is the best thing in the world. Learning languages is the best thing. It's the best gift you can give yourself. And it is the most confidence boosting thing because you see so tangibly. There was a whole life that I lived before I could speak Spanish. And now there's a whole new life that I have with new characters, new experiences, new stories, new personality traits. So I hope that you give yourself that key. And if you have more specific questions about the technical side of things or questions around Spanish, then comment them below. I'm going to make hopefully an updated version of this if I use these ideas to learn Portuguese. And I'm really excited for the next episode. It's going to be an interview with a super cool, bossy gal. But in the meantime, stay bossy, stay iconic, and go learn a new language. Thank you for your time.